Commencing roll call now. Council Member Juan Carlos Parado.
Present.
Council Member Beatriz Trillo. Absent. Council Member Everardo Rodriguez.
Present.
Council Member Jennifer Ruiz. Absent. Vice Chair Blair Whitney.
Here.
Council Member Gabriela Aike. Absent. Council Member Setlali Corencita. Absent. And Chair Brooks Esser.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And before we get started, or before we move forward, I would like to mention that we do have an interpretation line that our Spanish interpreter will assist us with tonight. The phone number is 1-877-568-4106, and the code to enter is 877-394-869#. Victor, would you like to provide this instruction in Spanish?
Thank you, Joshua. Through the chair, muy buenas noches. Les queremos dejar saber a todos ustedes hoy que esta reunión será interpretada al español. Para poder acceder al canal de audio, por favor, haga clic en el botón de interpretación, que va a ser un icono de un globo o un icono de un mundo que aparecerá al fondo de su pantalla en esta barra de tareas de Zoom. Después de eso aparecerá un menú y entonces usted podrá seleccionar su idioma. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor. Now back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Victor. First item tonight is an action. We need to pass an AB 361 resolution to actually meet virtually like this. On March 17th, 2020, the governor issued Executive Order N2920, suspending certain provisions of the Ralph M. Brown Act in order to allow for local legislative bodies to conduct their meetings telephonically or by other electronic means. On June 11, 2021, the governor issued Executive Order N821, extending the suspension of those provisions to September 30th, 2021. And on September 16, 2021, the governor signed AB 361, a bill that formalizes and modifies the teleconference procedures implemented by California public agencies in response to the governor's executive orders addressing Brown Act compliance during shelter-in-place periods. AB 361 allows local governments to continue to conduct virtual meetings as long as there's a gubernatorial proclaimed public emergency in combination with adopted findings that meeting in person would present risks to health. Thus, we require a resolution this evening to invoke the provisions of AB 361 as it is found that conducting in-person meetings would present an imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees. Do we have any public comment on this item?
During this time, members of the public can comment on any topic that is not on the agenda. For those attending the meeting on the Zoom video conference, we will use the raise hand feature to organize any public comments. When you hear your name called, we'll send you a request to unmute your mic and you may begin speaking. Each person will be given 2 minutes to speak. Seems that there are no public comments at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Do we have any questions from council members? Okay, Emma, I see your hand. Yes, Emma, go ahead, please.
Through the chair, thank you. I'd just like to go back to Victor Hernandez on the instructions for Spanish speaking. I think you said is to hit the global link, but we have a different Spanish speaking interpretation. It's through a phone number and a pound. Could you repeat those instructions?
Thanks, Emma. You're absolutely right. Apologies through the
Josh, can you
chair.
go back to that slide, please?
Yeah, a lot of these Zoom calls all start looking
No
the
worries.
same. They start looking, they all blur together.
No worries, Victor. I got you back here.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Josh, could you put that slide back up? Thanks.
Kenny?
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much. Once again, les queremos dejar saber que toda esta reunión será interpretada al español. Para poder acceder a ese canal de audio, llame al 1-877-568-4106. Es una llamada gratuita y tendrá que introducir un código que es el 877-394-869 con el símbolo de número después para poder acceder la traducción en español de esta reunión. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor. Where did we leave off?
Madam Chair, I think
we-
we were seeing if there were any council member comments on the AB 361 resolution.
That's right, Melissa. Thank you very much. Are there any questions from council members with regard to an AB 361 resolution? Councilmember Rodriguez, go ahead, please.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, my only question, not necessarily with this, but is if we are going back to in-person meetings, and do you have an idea when that may happen?
We are working towards that. We have Emma on the line tonight. As you know, the community center is going to be out of service for a few months while it gets renovated. Now, with that said, we're looking at beginning in-person meetings when and if we're able to equip the community center to handle that. And if not, we'll look for an alternate venue. Can you add something on that, Emma? I know we talked about this just last week.
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. We have been looking for additional locations, and the location that we have, we found an alternative location in the county government center, room 101. We haven't been able to find a spot in North Fair Oaks that could accommodate and do a hybrid model, but we did find a room, and now we're just checking availability, and when we'd like to move over, it would be in county government center, room 101.
And outfitting that is a priority. Is that correct, Emma? I believe procurement, I believe you told me the procurement cycle for the county ends at the end of this month or something like that. So if we're going to get the room outfit, we have to do that pretty quickly.
Well, the room currently at County Government Center is already ready, and
Okay.
already tested it. That one is equipped. Anything outside of that room will have to go through, a purchasing, and so we're doing that to see, even checking and working with Fair Oaks to see what, as they're doing retrofits, we're also checking to see what we can do to support and add in any additional items in there and support that, the needs that we may have, as well as looking at other community locations.
No, I appreciate that. That's great. And hopefully we can make that happen sooner rather than later. Do we have any other questions from council members with regard to AB 361? If not, then I will entertain a motion to invoke the provisions of AB 361 so that we can continue to meet virtually like this.
I make the motion.
I second.
Okay, we need a roll call on this one, please, Joshua.
That's good. Commencing roll call now. Councilmember Juan Carlos Parada,
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo. Absent. Councilmember Ever Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabriel Yaque, absent. Councilmember Citlali Kurincita, absent. And Chair Brooks.
Yes,
That's good. Back to you, Chair.
motion passes. Thank you very much, Joshua. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. Please note the council may not discuss or take actions on items that are not on the agenda this evening. Do we have any public comment this evening?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 2, AB 361 resolution, please raise your hand now.
Through the chair, just to clarify, I think we're accepting public comment on any item not on the agenda.
That is correct.
This one.
Believe I mentioned that, Melissa, but you're absolutely right.
There seems to be no public comment at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Our next agenda item is a recognition of Linda Lopez for her service to North Fair Oaks. Linda could not be with us this evening, but I did receive the disappointing news last week that Linda, a longtime member of the North Fair Oaks Community Council, has moved out of the area and is no longer eligible to serve on the North Fair Oaks Community Council. I just wanted to offer both the public as well as council members the opportunity tonight to acknowledge her contributions to our community and place that on the record. Linda served North Fair Oaks tirelessly for over 50 years, continuously working to improve the quality of life for our residents. Linda herself put it best when she noted to me in an email. She said, it's been challenging but honorable. Progress has been slow, but advancements have been many. North Fair Oaks has its community center, health clinic, senior center, library, child care center, and a strong network of community-based organizations and local government. She's contributed significantly to the creation of all of those community assets. I'd like to offer my personal thanks to her as a mentor and a friend. Her advice and counsel have been invaluable to me, both as a council member as well as a chair. At this time, I'd like to offer members of the public an opportunity to share their thoughts on Linda's contributions. If we have someone who would like to speak on that, Joshua.
During this time, members of the public can comment on any topic that is not in the agenda. This time, there are no public comments. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to invite other council members, if they have any thoughts on Linda that they would like to share as she concludes her service on the council. Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brooks. Yeah, you know, Linda is like the mother of North Fair Oaks. She has seen it all, you know, and has been part of almost every accomplishment for the community, including those that she mentioned. And I think that our council is really at a loss without Linda, because she has a very unique way of voicing the community's concerns. You know, without being harsh or confrontational. She has the ability to bring issues to reality, and certainly, you know, the community at large, not only the council, will miss her, you know, very much for the dedication that she has had throughout the years, not only to our council, but, you know, in many other aspects throughout the community. I know she was, you know, a role model for many kids at the Siena Youth Center. She was quite active there, mentoring youth, supporting, you know, current leaders all the way. So, yeah, I will miss her dearly as a colleague, you know, as part of the council, as well as a friend. And thankfully, she didn't go too far. So it's just, you know, next city. So thank you.
Thank you. What other council members like to offer their thoughts on Linda and her service? Councilmember Prado, I see your hand raised. Go ahead, Juan Carlos.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I have, I mean, it's very disappointing. I think we're all a little taken back. Her many decades of service to North Fair Oaks And for me, as a boy, having grown up in North Fair Oaks and used the North Fair Oaks Library when it was just a room in the Fair Oaks Community Center, having used the North Fair Oaks Clinic when it was just a tiny room on Middlefield Road. She has been, and I would go further than what you gentlemen have said. I mean, I really feel she's kind of an institution in North Fair Oaks. And it's a tremendous loss for our community, but I think she leaves a tremendous legacy, and certainly was a big motivator for our youth. She was always, and I'm sure will continue to be in the community where she lives now, but so her legacy will live on for many generations to come. So I just wanted to share a few words from my point of view.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Prado. Any other thoughts from council members on Linda's service? Okay, well, thank you very much. And I know Linda's going to listen to this at some time, so just thank you very much for all of your service, Linda. Next item on the agenda tonight is a recommendation, plan for adoption of the Community Climate Action Plan. The result of this will be a motion to recommend the approval of the Community Climate Action Plan to the Board of Supervisors. Presentations can be made by, I believe, Carolyn Blody. Perhaps I'm mistaken on that, who's the Director of the Office of Sustainability. I don't see Carolyn in the room. Do we have someone
No,
taking her?
sorry.
We're going to have Ivana and Effie Effie Verducci will be on the call.
Okay, terrific. I see both of them here. Whoever would like to lead the presentation, the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Ivana Andrade, and I'm a staff member in the Office of Sustainability. And it's my pleasure to be speaking with you council members about the 2022 Community Climate Action Plan today. Thank you for bringing up the presentation. You may remember that I presented to this group in February when I provided you a more in-depth presentation on the plan. And during the next 10 minutes or so, I'll present the highlights of the final plan since I last presented to the group, and update you on our outreach efforts during our final phase of public engagement, and outline the next and final steps for the plan's adoption. So next slide. You might remember this project involves an update to the 2013 Energy and Climate Change Element and the 2013 Energy Efficiency Climate Action Plan in response to changes in state law, really just to keep pace with changes in state law and with progress that the county has made on the issue of climate change. The plan includes actions for reducing greenhouse gas emissions in unincorporated San Mateo County by focusing on electrifying buildings, supporting the transition to electric vehicles, and supporting climate beneficial agriculture. The implementation here that we're really looking at is, or that the project involves, is updated documents that contain policies to shape future programs, building code, and other planning policies. So by adopting this plan, when it goes to the board, we're not at the same time adopting building code or zoning code or anything like that, but the plan does have measures for staff to pursue those kinds of ideas. Next slide, please. So the plan is oriented around 4 main action areas or sectors. 1 involves actions to reduce energy use and transition to renewable energy sources, namely renewable electricity, so transitioning away from natural gas in our homes and commercial buildings. Actions to transition to electric vehicles and provide more access to public transportation, walking, and biking. Actions to reduce and divert waste from the landfill. This is really talking about getting edible food and kitchen scraps and yard waste out of the landfill. And finally, actions to sequester carbon and support the local food system. Might also refer to this as climate beneficial agriculture. Next slide, please. The source of all of the emissions in unincorporated San Mateo County is really coming from the cars that we drive. That's the biggest, most carbon intensive thing that we do, really single occupancy vehicles driving down the road. The second biggest source is the natural gas that we use to heat our water and heat the space in our homes. That's the lion's share of our natural gas use. And third is the methane that comes off of organic waste in the landfill. So this is solid waste. It's when organic matter, kitchen scraps, yard waste, food gets sent to the landfill and it decomposes anaerobically. Ugh. And it produces methane. And methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. It's more potent than carbon dioxide. It doesn't hang around for as long, but it's really a powerful gas. So that's where most of our emissions are coming from. And this is really what the plan is oriented around. Next slide. County staff and consultants began the project with data gathering and multi-criteria analysis in 2019. Gradually, we moved into the drafting phase, stakeholder consultation and engagement. And these two especially were kind of an iterative thing, going back and forth and back and forth. We performed environmental review. This is a CEQA document. There's a CEQA document associated with this update because it's part of our general plan. And then revising the draft again. And this summer, we'll be bringing the document to the Board of Supervisors for adoption. And just last month, we were actually at the Planning Commission with a study session. So the process of developing the strategies and the measures has been iterative, as I mentioned. It's involved numerous stakeholders, including a technical advisory group, Office of Sustainability staff, county departmental staff, namely health policy and planning and building especially, Department of Public Works, and Department of Housing. So really grateful for the support that we've received, especially from the Planning and Building Department. And we've had many conversations with folks in the Department of Public Works, and they're on board with what's in this plan. So we're really happy about that. Our engagement has also involved community-based organizations and leaders, community groups, and unincorporated residents. So we've created many opportunities for stakeholders to weigh in multiple times, different ways. And I'll get a more of an in-depth look at this in the next slide. To solicit public feedback, we actually hosted 5 different pop-up events before COVID. We received over 200 survey responses. And with COVID, we pivoted to doing virtual workshops, focus groups, and interviews and briefings. Lots of different briefings and focus groups where we engaged over 500 community leaders and residents. So next slide. Here you can see a few images of our engagement activities. We have an image of some in-person events that we did at the North Fair Oaks Community Center, the Siena Youth Center, screenshots of workshops we did with youth and community groups. And in the lower right side, we have images of collateral staff developed in Mandarin and Spanish, materials designed for youth audiences. So we had a number of workshops conducted in Spanish that we did in partnership with Alas and Puente, among others. So county staff aim to prioritize racial equity throughout the planning process. As we evaluated the equity implications of proposed actions, as well as in the way that we approached community engagement and our targeted stakeholder consultation. Next slide. Most recently, in April, we went back out to the community. We partnered with the St. Francis Center, and we worked with actually a middle school class, and we provided some lessons on climate change and about the climate action plan, and trained them up to do some surveying in their own community, which they were really excited to do. We got over 100 survey responses back from them. So, and that has generated some really valuable information for us. So we'll be using that as we enter the implementation phase of the plan. So that was really fun. Next slide. As I mentioned, county staff have integrated racial equity throughout the CAPS measures. Here are just a few examples of how we did that. The plan focuses on workforce development and specifically providing employment opportunities for the local workforce, residents with barriers to employment and communities most affected by climate change. So that's on the workforce front. This is just one example. There's a lot more language on here on workforce development. I'm just trying to give you a flavor of how this theme shows up in a few cases. And then when we're looking at electrification, priority will be placed on low-income households, historically underserved communities, and on locations where infrastructure and/or appliances are aging and where indoor air quality is poor. And this is a focus that you'll find throughout the CAPS measures. Next slide, please. So I want to round out this presentation with just highlighting some of the main content that's in the plan. So when we look at transportation sector, we have an emphasis on making electric vehicle charging more available and making electric vehicles more accessible just generally, supporting investments in urban canopy, implementing priority pedestrian and bikeway projects. We already know where a lot of these are needed through the active transportation plan. Implement traffic calming and complete streets, as well as supporting access to public transportation through first mile, last mile solutions like e-bikes and scooters and shuttle programs. So this is really just skimming the surface. There's a lot more detail on the plan. I'm just trying to give you a sense of what's in here. And next slide. I was browsing around for the best image for this, and the best image for this is actually Simpson's image. It encapsulates everything. So I hope you'll just go with that with me. The next big section in the plan is about building energy. So what we mean by that is transitioning away from natural gas and towards electricity. The main focus here is making sure that that transition does not result in disproportionate or additional burden to already utility rent burdened communities. There's a very real risk for this, and this is something that county staff are very aware of and are part of all kinds of working groups to figure out how we can do this without exacerbating existing economic stress. So transitioning away from natural gas, supporting and accelerating solar panel installation, and improving energy efficiency in homes. All of these things have very real and significant benefits on public health, indoor air quality, etc. Next slide, please. The last sector that I'll highlight in our presentation today is the solid waste reduction sector. And this is really about reducing the edible food that goes to the landfill. You would be surprised at how much edible food we send to the landfill, perfectly good food. There's new state law that makes that not possible to do that anymore. So adhering to this new state law, it's called SB 1383, will do that for us, really. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it will help us both meet that law and this plan. So we need to prevent edible food from being sent to the landfill, and we also need to reduce drastically the amount of yard waste and kitchen scraps and other organic material that gets sent to the landfill. So I mentioned this in my last presentation to this council, but the county is working on establishing more compost collection systems that will be programs that will be deployed countywide. So the next steps, next slide, please. So our next stop is at the Planning Commission, where we hope to get a recommendation from the commissioners to the Board of Supervisors that they recommend the plan on August 2nd, when we'll be taking the plan to the Board of Supervisors. So with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ayana. Do we have any public comment on this item?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 5, adoption of community climate action plan, please raise your hand now. There seems to be no public comment at this time. I'll turn it over to our interpreter to see if there are any public comments on their end. Victor, are there any public comments on the phone line?
Thanks, Joshua. Through the chair, there's none at the moment.
Thank you, Victor. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from council members on this item? Councilmember Rodriguez, I see your hand up. Ever go ahead, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Ivana, for the presentation. Is there a full project description online that you have accessible? I wonder.
Yeah, the full plan has been online, let's see, for the last few months. So I would be happy to share that with you. I also think, yeah, it's still hosted online. Short answer is yes.
Thank you. The other question, and I have, and this is just based on your presentation, is it appears to be the project appears to be more heavily oriented towards transportation. Are there other aspects? I know you mentioned also waste reduction, but I'm wondering about alternatives for alternative ways to prevent overusing materials that are polluting, like plastic bags and that kind of thing at a personal level, like alternatives. Instead of using plastic, you can use a cloth bag or something like that.
Yeah, so we do have the plan really has several co-equal sectors that we're looking at. One is transitioning away from natural gas in existing homes. That is probably going to be the most critical area for the plan in terms of meeting our emissions reduction goals. And that's something that we have a little bit more agency in as a county agency. One of the things that is often frustrating about the way that we do climate action planning is that it's really oriented around emissions reduction. So we add in other things, like there are some measures around reducing non-organic waste in the landfill. So there are measures about that in the plan for sure, because that's important to the community and it's about quality of life. But when we're looking at meeting emissions reduction goals, things like not using plastic bags, while those are critical quality of life issues, that doesn't rise to the top of the list in terms of reducing emissions. So those kinds of things are definitely in the plan. But I think what I tend to lean towards in these presentations are some of the actions that are more related to emissions reduction. So if anything, that's my fault for kind of leaning towards those kinds of things. But if I could share that link with you, I would in the chat right now. But there is a whole section on reducing non-organic waste. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And on that same vein, is reforestation a part of the plan, considered as a sort of a mitigation action?
When you say reforestation, what do you mean?
Yeah, like for example, here in North Fair Oaks, I'm speaking specifically about the lack of trees in particularly on the Redwood City side of North Fair Oaks. And I'm sure other communities throughout San Mateo County would benefit, from having more trees for carbon sequestration. as well as for, reducing the temperature, of the sun reflecting on asphalt, etc. But mainly, as a mitigation way to carbon sequestration. Is that something that is also being
Yeah.
looked?
Yeah, thank you for that question. We address the importance of urban canopy. This is a little bit counterintuitive. We have it in the transportation sector for its role in creating more friendly let's say street environments for active transportation. But we have a whole section on the critical importance of urban canopy. So we have a working land section that's focused on the role that range and cropland play in sequestering carbon or pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. When we look at the urban landscape, the potential for sequestering carbon by planting trees is pretty low. But there's other more critical need for urban canopy that you outlined. So we don't look at urban canopy in terms of the potential for sequestering in urban spaces, but we definitely have that outlined in our traffic calming section. So I would be happy to follow up with an email outlining exactly where this is. And actually in our implementation plan, urban canopy and some of the traffic calming measures in the plan are number 2. So we've definitely prioritized that issue in multiple areas in the plan for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Councilmember Vice Chair Whitney, excuse me. Blair, go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to share like a general feeling because I'm a renter and it does feel like every cost gets passed on to me. And like the last 5 or 10 years, landlords are very generous with the increases. My preference is that we offer incentives rather than punitive, like rather than just banning outright natural gas, but offer incentives for the conversion slowly. But, it's going to work out the way it works out. I'm cognizant also that, we're not using renewable energy exclusively to generate our electricity. And in rural parts of the county, the cost of running power lines versus, an off-grid system or a gas system, I would just encourage flexibility for unique situations and different parts of the county, and just be as gentle as possible and not, be punitive with people because money's tight. That's all I got.
If I may respond to that comment quickly, the issue of electrification, when we're looking at electrification, that issue that you bring up, Blair, is really top of mind for everybody that I work with, is the risk that electrification poses for pushing people out. The risk is real, and there's a lot of research and a lot of work being done that we're doing in collaboration with the city of Berkeley and others in the Bay Area to figure out what the best incentives are. You're right, a punitive approach is not the direction that we want to go. And that's certainly not the direction that the plan is indicating. We aren't adopting any building code or anything like that by passing this plan. We're mostly saying staff will look into the best route forward in terms of building code, et cetera. So we haven't really chosen a direction yet, but you bring up all very salient points that are very much on our minds as we think about and approach the issue.
Are there any further questions from council members? Councilmember Rodriguez, ever go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And another question, Ivana, regarding electric vehicles. Considering that here in North Fair Oaks, a large number of folks tend to have older vehicles that are more polluting. I mean, we have, many gardeners who have, older pickups, 8-cylinder, who are guzzlers. And, for families to be able to make the jump to an electric vehicle might be an impediment in the first place, because we tend to have an idea that electric vehicles are super expensive, many times without actually knowing. I know that there are many incentives, but I wonder if the plan has any specifics, not only about adopting electric vehicles, but more to the effect of how communities like North Fair Oaks, that tend to have a lot of working class residents, may have different needs, and those needs be supported by newer technologies made not only available, but more accessible through programs that the county may support.
Thank you for that comment, Ever. Yeah, the plan with respect to electric vehicles takes a few different approaches. One is to make the charging infrastructure more accessible, and also to support and establish more incentives, partner with other entities, other regional entities, to leverage existing funding to make electric vehicle charging or electric vehicles more accessible for more people. So it's not really a chicken or an egg kind of issue. It's more these two things need to evolve and become more accessible together: the charging infrastructure and the incentives to buy or lease or what have you electric vehicles. So it's something that's in tandem, and the plan lays out concepts for both to make both things more accessible. So yeah, I encourage you to take a look at what's in the plan here. We do lay out ideas and concepts for partnering with community-based organizations to do alternative fuel or EV outreach, and to leverage existing programs and incentives, layering on top of those. So yeah. The other thing too, I'll add, is that the state is already headed in this direction. So we're going to be seeing in the coming months and years more investment by the state that will propel us along. So we need to do additional work on top of what the state is doing. But I think there's going to be quite a bit of incentives and a nudge from that direction as well.
Thank you, Anna.
Any further questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, I believe, Ivana, that we need a motion to recommend approval of the climate action plan by the Board of Supervisors on behalf of the council. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that was
something that was a little bit unclear to me.
Okay.
If I'm being honest about what the formal step is here. I wasn't actually sure.
I
Yeah.
believe we were asked for a recommendation of approval for the Community Climate Action Plan to go to the Board of Supervisors. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
Yeah, if you entertain the motion, I can second that.
Oh, I need someone else to actually make the motion. I was
I'll
just
make the
asking for it.
motion. I'll make the motion that we approve the plan.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and we need a roll call vote on this one, Joshua.
Commencing roll call now. Councilmember Juan Carlos Parado,
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerillo is absent. Councilmember Ever Rodriguez,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Gabriel Eke is absent. Councilmember Setlali Kurencita is absent. And Chair Brooks Esser.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, Ivana and Nefi, for your presentation this evening and all the work that you've done on that plan. It looks terrific.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next item was to be a presentation from Rebuilding Together Peninsula. However, I was informed after our agenda was published that this presentation will be delayed until our next regular session in June. So we'll be looking for that on our June agenda. Next item is the discussion and approval of a letter to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors asking if the county action plan for women's reproductive freedom and healthcare privacy include a buffer zone around the reproductive health facilities in North Fair Oaks. A little background on this, as many of you know, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors last week passed a resolution affirming the county's support for women's reproductive freedom and healthcare. In a press release, the Board of Supervisors said this represents an initial step in its efforts to support unfettered access to reproductive care in San Mateo County. The board also instructed staff to develop an action plan, which would include specific steps to implement this commitment. And this plan is due to be presented to the board on June 14. At the same time, the Redwood City Council under Mayor Giselle Hale instructed city staff to prepare a letter to the board requesting the implementation of a buffer zone around the Planned Parenthood facility at 2907 El Camino Real. I reached out to Mayor Hale with the suggestion that the North Fair Oaks Community Council should concurrently write a letter to the board, given that the facility actually lies within the borders of North Fair Oaks and serves members of both communities. Mayor Hale agreed with this suggestion. So we have a timing aspect of this since the board is going to actually approve the action plan on the 14th of June. Now, members of the council have been provided with a copy of the draft letter, and the draft was also posted on the North Fair Oaks Community Council website. What I'd like to do at this time is read the letter in its entirety into the record. So, to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors from the North Fair Oaks Community Council. Oh, there we are. I didn't realize I was going to come up on the screen. Thank you. Regarding a buffer zone for the Planned Parenthood Clinic in North Fair Oaks, the North Fair Oaks Community Council commends the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors for the passage of a resolution on May 17, 2022, demonstrating the board's, quote, unwavering commitment to women's reproductive freedom and healthcare privacy, as well as its request that the county executive develop an action plan to implement this commitment for presentation to the board on June 14, 2022. This council requests that the action plan include the creation of a buffer zone around the Planned Parenthood Clinic located at 2907 El Camino Real, Redwood City, which is located within North Fair Oaks and is thus under the jurisdiction of the county. Buffer zones around facilities such as the Planned Parenthood Clinic in North Fair Oaks are not a new idea. Indeed, cities such as Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, and Walnut Creek are either considering or have implemented buffer zones around similar facilities. Locally, the Redwood City Council has sent a letter to the board requesting a buffer zone at the 2907 El Camino location, as many patients at the clinic are residents of Redwood City. Supervisor Canepa has noted, quote, we've seen an uptick of protests at clinics such as the Planned Parenthood at 2907 El Camino on the edge of Redwood City. Therefore, I agree with the Redwood City Council that the county should create a buffer zone, unquote. Note that we are not requesting that the buffer zone in any way restricts the right to free speech included in the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, a concern that has been voiced by Supervisor Slocum. Rather, we are asking that provisions included in the county action plan which would protect patients of the clinic from potential harassment by protesters. North Fair Oaks Community Council thanks the Board of Supervisors for consideration of this request. What I'd like to do at this point is open this up for public comment. Do we have public comment this evening?
During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 7, approval of letter to San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, please raise your hand now. There seems to be no public comments at this time. Victor, are there any public comments on your end?
Thanks, Joshua, through the chair. There are none.
Thank you, Victor. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, before I ask for public comment, I see County Council. Melissa, you have your hand up. Go ahead and address the council.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I received a quick message from Deputy County Executive Mates just before the meeting. He had an unexpected personal matter and wasn't able to join tonight, but he did ask if I could share with you all that the supervisors have specifically asked staff to look into this issue of creating a buffer zone. And his understanding is that staff are analyzing and studying the issue along with County Counsel's office, although I am not working on it, so I have no extra knowledge. Deputy County Executive Mates wanted you to know that his understanding is that the results of that analysis and study should be going back to the board on June 28th, although I did hear you, Chair Esser, say June 14th, so not 100% positive on the date, but I think he just wanted you all to be aware that staff is working on this issue.
Thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you for your input on that. Do we have any questions from council members on this? Vice Chair Whitney, Blair, floor is yours.
Hi, I live in the neighborhood near the old Chevys. It's the Planned Parenthood, and I bike by there. There's some nice older folks from the faith community that are on the park bench on occasion. And in the meeting of El Camino, I've seen some young ladies counter protesting, but it's really low key and very civil. And there's never been an issue or a problem. I know it's an election year and people are really excited. But I don't think this is a hot issue where we're fixing an existing problem. It's like we're preemptively retaliating against a problem that we're sure is going to happen, but hasn't happened. I think, you know, I'm a veteran of the Army, and I was really kind of upset by this Westboro Baptist Church thing where they were at military funerals protesting. But, you know, it's in the Constitution and the freedom of speech. If someone's in front of the doors of Planned Parenthood, they're trespassing on private property. But if they're on the sidewalk adjacent, they're just exercising their rights to be on a public sidewalk on a public street. So I realize that it's an election season and it's real important for folks to take a political stand and you know, get notice. But I think we're jumping ahead because the Board of Supervisors isn't necessarily going to approve that. They're going to hear the recommendations from county staff. I don't feel like this is a hot issue for the community where we need to suggest this. And by saying that a whole bunch of jurisdictions are looking at it, you know, it's kind of a big deal to start saying you can't protest Wall Street near Wall Street. You cannot protest a court decision within 3 blocks of a court. You can't freely assemble. It's troubling. So I'm going to either vote against it or abstain because I don't perceive a need. And we have a very civil community here in North Fair Oaks. So I'm not concerned about this issue at this time.
Okay, very good. Are there any questions from other council members? Councilmember Rodriguez, go ahead, Ever.
Yeah, my question is, what is the distance that may be asked for protesters to respect? Do you know?
I do not know. It's a question as to the amount of available space. Obviously, people are free to stand on the sidewalk and that sort of thing. So the thought would be that it would be somewhere on the facility, but that's to be determined.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be important to know, what is the perimeter that this zone may include. I know that, as a male, I want to bend over backwards to support women so that they can feel at ease, Planned Parenthood is an organization that provides services to anybody regardless of the gender, but statistically they serve a lot of women, and I think that it is the right step to show support. I know I've seen the protesters, they are there regularly. Like Blair says, tends to be older folks, and yet, reproduction rights are very personal, sensitive, emotional issues that do not need to have added trouble, from third parties, trying to meddle on whatever decisions anybody wants to make, with their bodies. And so I think that while our community tends to be pretty civil and respectful, I know that many of the protesters, are not from the community. At least I haven't met anybody, from those folks who are, from this community. And so I think taking a stand, to support reproductive access and services is a good thing.
Thank you, Ever. Are there other questions from council members? Okay, seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve the letter to the Board of Supervisors requesting the inclusion of a buffer zone around the Planned Parenthood facility at 2907 El Camino Real in the action plan that supports the board's commitment to women's reproductive freedom. Do we have a motion like that?
I'll move to support the letter as to the Board of Supervisors as stated.
Do we have a second? Then the motion does not get a vote for lack of a second if I do not hear a second. Okay, very good. Let's move on to report outs then. We'll start with the supervisor's report. Maggie, I see you on the line tonight. Why don't you go ahead?
Good evening, council members. I'm Maggie Cornejo, and my report out was just going to be on this topic, but Melissa stepped in and shared what I was going to share. So I really don't have much to report, but I do want to clarify that the board meeting where there is going to be the report out will be on June 14th. So that will be the main report out. And I do have one more thing. I found out that Redwood City Fire and Menlo Fire are working to put together a CERT training for the North Fair Oaks community in June. I don't have finalized details, but I did want to mention it to the council members just to keep on your radar for any information that might come your way. And if you're interested in joining the training, just be thinking that in June there'll be a possibility of that.
That was CERT training, Maggie?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the supervisor?
No, that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is the county manager's report. I do not see Justin this evening. Do we have someone sitting in for him? Okay, apparently not. Council members' reports are next. Vice Chair Whitney. Blair, do you have a report this evening?
I turn my video on and
There you go.
waving. One, I want to apologize. I've committed to be on a couple subcommittees, and my job is such that I'm in the service sector, and so even with the best of intentions, if it's busy at work, I just can't be on a Teams meeting. So I've missed a couple. I stay abreast and read up on the things with the rezoning and the bike plan, but it's just the economic reality. If I'm working a day shift or someone's sick or late and I'm just busy, I can't attend. And then the second thing to report is I'm actually super excited about CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team. They've got trailers, and if there's an earthquake or a flood or a fire, it's like the community is ready to react, and I'm totally excited. So I'm glad that this is going to be offered. I've talked to them at the port festivals and different things, asking when we could get something in North Fair Oaks. So if I do volunteer, this is something I'll go to, because it's like CB radios and drones and preparing to distribute water and food, and it's fun stuff that I enjoy doing. So that's all I have for my report.
Good, thank you. Councilmember Prado, Juan Carlos, do you have a report out tonight?
I do not have one out tonight, yes.
Councilmember Ruiz, Jennifer, anything to report?
No report today.
Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez, the floor is yours if you have a report this evening.
Yeah, thank you. Just to mention that I am participating on North Fair Oaks bicycle and pedestrian crossing across the railroad, the Caltrain tracks, dissecting the community on the side of El Camino Real and the side of Middlefield Road. The county is looking at contemplating putting a bridge or an underpass to provide access to the community, that is more straightforward or accessible, in the sense that right now the only way for somebody who lives, let's say, close to the Siena Youth Center to come to the library, the North Fair Oaks Library or the clinic or the community center, is going all the way to Fifth Avenue, because Woodside Road is not a pedestrian venue. Although, some people venture out just because, some people don't have a vehicle, they just have to walk. and vice versa. You know, people from this side of the community going to Target, for example, or Planned Parenthood, for that matter. You know, they have to go around, you know, double the distance just because they, you know, there's not a pedestrian or bicycle route that is straightforward. So the plan is underway, and they're doing outreach. They will be ramping it up to look into the options and possibilities, and eventually asking residents feedback on, you know, whatever preferences there may be. So I'll keep you updated on any future progress. So that's my report for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Rodriguez. Let's see, that would come to me then. I've got a few things tonight. First of all, Senate Bill 893 has passed the state Senate. It's now moved on to the Assembly. If you'll recall, this council wrote a letter of support for SB 893 to the Board of Supervisors and encouraged the board to voice its support to our elected leaders in Sacramento, which they did. For those of you who are unfamiliar with SB 893, it's a bill that allows San Mateo County Community College District to charge reduced or in some cases free tuition for the 3 San Mateo community colleges. It's specific to this district. It's being thought of as kind of a trial balloon, given the budget situation that is favorable in the San Mateo County community college system right now. So moving on to the Assembly, hopefully it'll get through there, but it's good to see progress being made in that regard. I attended the neighborhood response team meeting last week. The Sheriff's Office discussed the work that they are doing with regard to fireworks outreach, encompassing social media, flyers, flashing signboards on Middlefield and 5th. I think you've all seen the rather large, probably 8 by 8 foot digital signboards that they've put out there with a simple message. All fireworks are illegal in North Fair Oaks. They've also created a video in Spanish, and they've posted that on the sheriff's page. I believe Community Affairs is engaged in this outreach as well. They're going to have a banner on 5th Avenue, as well as digital communications. We're going to see a postcard going out to all residents in North Fair Oaks, and perhaps a billboard. So a lot of effort going on trying to mitigate the fireworks they always get, obviously, around this time of year. And I wanted to note the Sheriff's Office is on the agenda for our next meeting on June 23rd. So right before the 4th, we can come with questions and suggestions, that sort of thing, for things they can do to make it a quieter 4th of July. Finally, with regard to the 2 vacancies we have on the council, we do have 1 application in. I believe we'll get a second one this week. In the meantime, if council members know of other candidates, please encourage them to apply. And if any members of the public tonight are attending and you'd be interested, go ahead and apply by going out to the boards and commissions page on the county website. That's at smcgov.org/BNC for boards in commissions, I guess. And that's my report. We can wrap up the evening. I'd like to thank our presenters. Thanks to the members of the public who attended and participated this evening. And as always, thanks to county staff, Joshua, Emma, Victor, Kenny, and Melissa for their support. We could not run this council without you, that's for sure. Our next meeting is June 23rd, 2022. It'll be a regular session from 7 to 9 p.m. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, no roll call needed. Everyone say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.
Have a safe weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Emma. You too.